Welcome to Cyber Talks. We'll discuss all things cyber. My name is Nafthali, and I'm here with, what's your name and password again?
Yigal, Dirty Irish Whiskey.
As you can guess from my sad attempt, today's talk is going to be about social engineering and phishing, and all that's related to it. Basically, we're going to talk about reconnaissance phase, different approaches we take, infrastructure, and possible remediations. So let's start with the question, what exactly is social engineering?
So I remember you recalled it the other day, the art of bullshitting.
Sounds like me.
Yeah. So it definitely fits. So social engineering basically is the art of fooling someone or impersonating a different individual that someone can trust, and perhaps even provide you with his, personal details, bank accounts.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
So basically, let's start with the recon and get the way through. What sort of information are we after for?
So basically, we usually gather our basic information of about a person who works at a company by searching the company name, followed by searching each individual working at that company, scraping LinkedIn for full names, titles, and perhaps even constructing an initial email or possible email list. And of course, we also look for phone numbers, although that's less so apparent on LinkedIn.
It's more of a task.
Yeah, so for phone numbers and other stuff, we usually go to past breaches of Facebook, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
And we usually correlate it with the information regarding the who works, like the company that you work at Facebook. Like the company that you work at also can be on your Facebook profile. So we also correlate it with the LinkedIn profile, and we try to construct a list of employees, full names, possible email lists, and also phone numbers and titles.
We can't have enough information. We usually look for everything we can get. If, for example, I have a list of colleagues that you have, or I know the name of your manager, or any sort of information that can help us have a better scenario, better fit for the victim. I think that's pretty much the reconnaissance phase. So again, our purpose is to get an initial foothold inside the network. Do you want to talk about the different approaches we have?
So what used to be our primary approach was email attachments, primarily. Sorry?
Especially macros, yeah.
Yeah, so macros have been receiving a lot of attention from the security teams, also by Microsoft, which seems to claim that from April 2022, macros will be disabled by default, at least unsigned macros arriving from the internet.
Hopefully.
So, but attachments is still a viable option, as we have tested previously on several clients, even including with the ATP 365 defense. So other attachments that we can also try is HTML smuggling, which is considered a technique where you actually pack your malicious code inside binary blob at the HTML document, and you send it along as an attachment. Of course, you also need to stage up the social engineering bit of the attack.
You also had a nice workaround to deal with sandboxes and the solutions like that.
Indeed. So the sandbox usually does try to download. Of course, if your HTML document automatically downloads the included binary blob, a sandbox can also open your HTML document and download it and execute it to just see if you're doing anything malicious. So what we usually did was try to perform an anti-sandbox inside the JavaScript of the HTML document, where we actually look for human interaction with the document, such as mouse movements, and also some human interaction in the form of social engineering bits, such as a human resume that wants you to interact with it.
Just enable me, please.
Yeah. Do you have any other attachment examples?
I think a recent one I saw an article by Daniel Schell. Hopefully I'm not butchering his name, including Visual Studio tools for Office. It's basically an add-in built-in with Visual Studio that allows us to create add-ins for Office documents. Basically, this allows us to run .NET assemblies straight from Office files like Word, Excel, etc.
Sounds very useful.
Yeah, could be very useful. So we're still testing to see how it works. We can still see some issues with it, but we can there.
What other stuff do you think that you will be hunting for in order to gain access to the internal network?
So another approach is getting the victim session or credentials.
By session, what do you refer to?
Session, basically a session cookie, hopefully from Microsoft Portal, Azure, 365 applications, whatever you can get a hold of.
Okay, but what if the client has a multi-factor authentication?
That's a toughie. So basically, we have two approaches. The first one is we'll look for legacy authentication, see if we can get a hold of an email client, see if we can, using that access level, if we can reset or add a multi-factor number.
So if the client wants
Add a
backward
device,
compatibility, if the client wants backward compatibility with, for instance, a certain email client instead of Outlook, for example.
Yeah, exactly. Another possible solution or workaround is to actually capture the MFA authentication itself. This can be done using a proxy between the client and the application. And when the victim enters our domain, he basically delivers his interaction with Microsoft in this case straight through us, meaning we can have his session after he performs the full authentication, including the MFA step.
Very cool. So basically, the client actually needs to check the domain that he gets delivered through the link, and not just the like the certificate green V, so it's called.
Yeah.
So what sort of other infrastructure considerations do you have when you establish such a domain?
So regarding the infrastructure again, we'll need to have a valid domain as much as possible. We'll need to have a domain with a good reputation. We noticed several characters that might affect the score of the domain. Maybe dash could lower the overall score. It's also important to have a top-level domain that is trusted, or like .com. And another issue...
There are other alternatives that you presented in the past.
Yeah, not having a large company's name in the domain, like Microsoft something, will get picked up quite easily.
So I also assume that I remember you saying in a previous assessment of yours, you actually went to you purchased an expired domain of the company that we were targeting, basically a domain that they actually had for like 8 years or so. And
so expired domains are...
Yeah. So that's really good because it actually already has an established reputation.
So if, for example, you find a domain that was left by the company, used it for a while, and just never used it again, or it's expired, that's a perfect suit for our purpose.
So you also mentioned that once you already have done all the infrastructure set up and all the, let's say, reconnaissance phase of the client, where you have the different individuals that you want to target, we usually also set up different phishing scenarios for like each department. For instance, human resources or finances would have different emails, also different, probably a sender. If spoofing is available, we'll also obviously use that and maybe even attempt to send an email from their boss towards them, which could be have quite a nice...
So you've mentioned emails. We've seen a lot of interest in email protection softwares, basically a lot of integrated solutions that deal with that sort of phishing attempt. So we were thinking maybe try, well, it's an old approach, but we can try SMS, text messages.
So what advantages do you see to SMS as opposed to email?
Yeah, so it's easily spoofed. You can control the sender quite easily. And basically, major companies still use SMS as an OTP mechanism. So for example, you have Microsoft sending an OTP. If you enter your phone and you see a new message from Microsoft, you'd see the full thread with the spoofed message. So it's I think it's a boost for credibility right there.
Let's say, how would you create a sense of urgency in a logical manner?
I think the best approach is to force a sort of a scary situation in where I give you an immediate relief. So I can help you. So let's move on to the demo. We'll try and recreate a scenario where the victim gets a series of text messages, one originating from Microsoft, as we'll see now. That's the message itself is a generic OTP message the victim is expecting. He regularly sees that message, hopefully.
You can also see that it comes up in the sequence messages of Microsoft.
Mm-hmm. So it looks fine to me, looks believable. And we'll wait, usually we wait, let's say 5 to 10 minutes and send another SMS, this time originating from the IT department, instructing the employee to perform a security challenge from given link inside the SMS. So as you can see, the link itself leads us to the phishing website. Here we'll enter our credentials as expected. And after that, we, as the attacker, will have access to the victim's session. So let's talk a little bit about the potential remediations we can offer.
All right, so conditional access has been a pain in our ass quite a lot of
especially if it's really strict. Basically, whitelisting a list of IP ranges is devastating for an attacker.
And not by geolocation, because we can also purchase a website at that geolocation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we've encountered some geolocation based conditional access, and just it's easily passable if we have a VPN set up for that specific region.
Yeah.
Another one is let's just talk about awareness first.
So awareness is very important regarding SMS specifically, because as of right now, not a lot of companies actually establish any mobile device management solution to the employee's private phone. And so the links that you are presented at the SMS level are not being scanned at all prior to being clicked by your browser.
That's why we love them.
Yeah. Furthermore, as you've mentioned already, the sender can be completely spoofed.
I think that that's the main takeaway regarding awareness. Basically, everybody knows about emails, about suspicious emails, send it to blah, 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 do this, do that. But SMS, just having the knowledge that it's possible to spoof the sender I think it's critical. So if you know it, you know to expect suspicious activity overall.
Yeah, email remediations are already pretty well known. Sal also released a video talking about DMARC, DKIM, and SPF DNS records for spoofing and otherwise helpful email protection mechanisms. Furthermore, you can also purchase an email gateway to scan each email arriving to your organization. And of course, endpoint protection tools are also complementary to the entire stack. Otherwise, list privilege possible, etc., the other usual recommendations, and so forth.
Right. So I think that's pretty much covering the entire discussion we had.
Just to recap, we discussed about social engineering, different vectors through social engineering, as in what we hope to achieve, how we would achieve it, the different attachments, alternative to macros. We also discussed about achieving sessions and credentials, a set of valid credentials from our targets. We also discussed about the alternative to emails, which is SMS. Do you have anything else to add?
We touched a bit about the infrastructure itself, how to set it up.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Thanks very much for listening to our Cyber Talk, and see you next time.